Welcome back to week 5 of my program. So if you remember last week we did a spinning abstract painting, and mine wasn't dry last week, so I thought I'd show you real quick. This is what it ended up turning out like. I think it turned out pretty well for the way that we did this. It was a really enjoyable process. But this week we're going to be going back to more traditional art. So I thought we would do something by someone named Wassily Kandinsky. So he did a lot of abstract paintings, but this is his most famous one. This is arguably his most famous painting, and honestly one of the most famous paintings in art history. It's called Concentric Circles, and this was made by Kandinsky. And so I'm going to be showing you how to create this, which is inspired by that painting. So in order to do this, you're going to need a piece of paper, any kind, crayons, markers, and something to make a straight line. I started off by folding my paper into 4 sections and then folding it into 3. And the way I did the 3 sections so that they're even is I made a square with my straight edge and then I just folded along the lines. That created an outline for each of the boxes where I was going to draw the circles in. Then I took crayons and I made each of the circles inside of the boxes. This has to be done with crayons and you'll see why in a second. So I made sure to make all of the circles in different colors and not repeating the same pattern. You can if you want to, but I think it looks better to have them more random. And as you can see in his painting, not all of them were perfect circles, so don't worry about making them all too neat. So after I had drawn all of the circles, I took a marker, and marker is actually resistant to crayon, meaning that if you have a line in crayon and you go over it with a marker, the pigment from the marker will not go over the crayon. The same thing can happen with watercolor, so if you don't have markers and you have watercolor, you can use watercolor as well. So I just went through after that and I filled in each of the boxes with a color. I made sure not to put the same color next to each other, and I made sure to have at least 2 of each color. And as you can see, as I was going over each of the boxes with the markers, the edges of the circles were not being drawn over by the color of the marker. The marker was soaking into the paper and going around the crayon. One of the issues that I did run into that you might is as you go across the crayon, sometimes the marker might start to fade. The marker isn't going out, it's just under a lot of stress after going over all of the crayons. So if you just flip over the marker, it'll work like normal, and then you can flip it back and it's just fine. And all of the folding lines were actually really helpful because you can just use them as borders to draw in the boxes so that you have perfect boxes. And so once I finished all of the boxes, I had this. This is a pretty simple project, it didn't take too long, and it's really fun to see how the colors will look once you change the background. You could even try experimenting by maybe combining multiple colors in a box, as in like the background, maybe splitting it in half and having one side with one color of marker and one side with another. You could maybe do certain patterns, you could do really anything with this. But the main point of this is just to use the same methods that Kandinsky used. And it's okay if it's a little bit messy. His actual painting is pretty messy. Another problem that I ran into that I think you might want to know about before trying to do this is that whenever I started coloring over these circles with the marker, if I was using the same color marker with the same color of circle, the circle could be drowned out by the color of the marker, and so make sure that you're mindful whenever you're choosing what color to make the background that you know that the color will still show up over the background. Like you can see this one right here, this red layer was over this orange background and you can barely see it looking far away. And same with this one, you can't even see the outer red circle, and especially not whenever looking far away. So just make sure as you're doing the coloring that you don't use the same color as you use for the background in the circle, because then that could just drown out the color entirely. But this is a really fun project and I hope you try it out. See you next week.